Hi everyone, we're doing Unit 10 this week and we're looking at strategic leadership. Strategic leadership is the ability to anticipate, envision, maintain flexibility, and empower others to create strategic change as necessary. Strategic leadership involves managing through others, managing an entire enterprise rather than a functional subunit, coping with change that continues to increase in the global economy. Strategic leaders must learn how to effectively influence human behavior, often in uncertain environments. They must be able to envision the future, and strategic leaders must be able to influence the behaviors, thoughts, and feelings of those with whom they work. We're going to look now at the strategic management process as it relates to strategic leadership. So effective strategic leadership shapes the formation of the vision and the mission, which we had done in earlier modules. And the vision of the mission now influences the strategic actions of the organization, which are the formulation of strategies, which are the business level strategies, corporate level strategies, and the implementation strategies, which are like corporate governance and leadership and strategic controls that we will do in the next session. These formulation of strategies and implementation of strategies now yield strategic competitiveness and above average returns. And what this graphic really is showing you that all of the strategic management process is really led by an effective strategic leadership team of persons, because without effective leadership, then all the other things the other strategies that are being put in place would result in poor performance. The role of top-level managers. Top-level managers play a critical role in that they are charged to make certain their firm is able to effectively formulate and implement strategies. Their strategic decisions influence how the firm is designed and goals will be achieved. A critical element of organizational success is having a top management team with superior management skills. Top management team is composed of key managers who are responsible for formulating and implementing the organization's strategies. A heterogeneous top management team with varied expertise and knowledge can draw on multiple perspectives when evaluating alternative strategies and building consensus. A top management team must be able to function effectively as a team in order to implement strategies. Now, if you remember from maybe previous courses where we looked at team management or team development, a heterogeneous team makes things more difficult because everybody is different and they have different backgrounds, etc. Then there can be more conflict. But at the same time, a heterogeneous team is associated positively with innovation and strategic change, because when people come with different backgrounds, they are able to come up with new, fresh ideas. Chief executive officers can gain so much power that they are virtually independent of oversight by the board of directors. This is especially true when the CEO is also chairman of the board of directors. CEOs of long tenure can also wield substantial power, and the most effective forms of governance share power and influence among the CEO and board of directors. And we looked at that in the last unit that we did, that we looked at agency relationship, etc. So this is saying that yes, the top management team is essential or important, but we have to be wary of the fact that the CEO can become so powerful that they feel that they don't need to take anybody else into consideration when they are making decisions, and therefore the board of directors is important. Let us talk now a little bit about managerial succession, and this is when a company looks at who is going to succeed the current leadership. Whether persons leave the organization or move into higher roles, a company always have to have a succession plan to replace those persons. So leadership screening systems are used to identify individuals with managerial and strategic leadership potential and to determine the criteria individuals should satisfy to be candidates for a CEO position. So based on the results of these assessments, training and development programs are provided for current individuals in an attempt to pre-select and shape the skills of people who may become tomorrow's leaders. Organizations select managers and strategic leaders from two types of managerial labor markets, internal and external. So we're going to look at them separately now, the internal labor market and the external labor market. The internal labor market consists of a firm's opportunities for managerial positions and the qualified employees within that firm. Experience within the firm and the industry environment in which it competes have insiders that are familiar with company products, markets, technologies, and operating procedures. So these persons have been working in this industry for a long time. They've been working with the firm, and therefore most companies believe that it is best to employ from within because they already have the experience and knowledge necessary. Internal hiring produces lower turnover among existing personnel, many of whom possess valuable firm-specific knowledge. So it stops people from leaving because then internal persons know that the possibility exists that they can be promoted into higher positions. When the firm is performing well, internal succession is favored to sustain high performance. It is assumed that hiring from inside keeps the important knowledge necessary to sustain performance, because the most valuable thing about employees is the knowledge that they have in their head, because they have been working in a particular industry for so long and they have developed their own set of capabilities and competencies as an individual that the company needs. So it is always better to employ from within. The external labor market now is the collection of managerial or career opportunities and the qualified people who are external to the organization in which the opportunities exist. Changing competitive landscape and varying levels of performance cause an increasing number of boards of directors to turn outside to succeed their CEOs. So they believe that because things change so rapidly and maybe their internal persons are kind of stuck in their own ways, then maybe they need to look outside to the external labor market to see if they can find people that will come with a certain level of expertise that the company does not currently possess. Long tenure with a firm may reduce strategic leaders' level of commitment to pursue innovation. So, as we were saying previously, that some CEOs become complacent and wield so much power that they don't feel like they need to be innovative and move with the changes in the marketplace. So selecting an outsider often brings fresh insights and may energize the firm with innovative new ideas. Now, there are certain key strategic leadership actions that we will look at. There are 5 of them. The first one is determining strategic direction. Second, effectively managing the firm's resource portfolio. And third, sustaining an effective organizational culture. Fourth, we want to look at emphasizing ethical practices. And fifth, we want to look at establishing balanced organizational controls. And these are 5 things that key strategic leaders must do in order to effectively run an organization that will remain competitive in the marketplace. So first, determining strategic direction. This involves specifying the image and character the firm seeks to develop over time. It is framed within the context of the conditions that are the opportunities and threats strategic leaders expect their firm to face in roughly the next 3 to 5 years. The ideal long-term strategic direction has 2 parts. A core ideology that is about how the company sees themselves, what is their history, and an envisioned future. Where do they see themselves going? So the ideology, you're looking at where we are now, and then the envisioned future is where we want to be. So the strategic direction could include such actions as entering new international markets and developing a set of new supplies to add to the firm's value chain. And all strategic leaders have to always be planning ahead and looking ahead, and therefore that is what we call their strategic direction. What do we want to do in the future? Effectively managing the firm's resource portfolio probably is the most important strategic task, because you have to manage what it is that you have in hand. And this strategic the resource portfolio is very large. It actually consists of the financial capital, human capital, social capital, and organizational capital, and this also includes the organizational culture. So effective strategic leaders manage the firm's resource portfolio by organizing them into capabilities, structuring the firm to facilitate using these capabilities, and choosing strategies through which the capabilities are successfully leveraged to create value for customers. So exploiting and maintaining core competencies and developing and retaining the firm's human and social capital are actions taken to reach these important objectives. And we will look at these two actions separately. Effectively maintaining or managing the firm's resource portfolio. We're looking now at exploiting and maintaining core competencies. As we know, core competencies are capabilities that serve as a source of competitive advantage for a firm over its rivals. So the firms must continuously develop and when appropriate, change their core competencies to outperform their rivals. If they have a competence that provides an advantage but does not change it, competitors will eventually imitate that competence and reduce or eliminate the firm's competitive advantage. Additionally, firms must guard against the competence becoming a liability, therefore preventing change. So even though you may have a set of core competencies that are working for you, it is in the firm's best interest to continuously develop those competencies so that you can remain competitive and so that other firms don't imitate what you are doing. Developing and retaining the firm's human and social capital, and this refers to knowledge and skills of a firm's entire workforce. So employees are viewed as a capital resource requiring continuous investment. Most of the time, this is done through training. So effective training and development programs increase the probability of individuals becoming successful strategic leaders. When human capital investments are successful, the result is a workforce capable of learning continuously. And continuous learning and leveraging the firm's expanding knowledge base are linked with strategic success. Sustaining an effective organizational culture. Organizational culture is a complex set of ideologies, symbols, and core values that are shared through the firm and influence the way business is conducted. Because the organizational culture influences how the firm conducts its business and helps regulate and control employees' behavior, it can be a source of competitive advantage and is a critical factor in promoting innovation. Shaping the context within which the firm formulates and implements its strategies, that is, shaping the organizational culture, is an essential strategic leadership action. So most firms try to promote the entrepreneurial mindset, which is within an organization, employees are allowed to come up with ideas and be innovative and have open discussions about new products, new services, and where they want the firm to go, and that is encouraged. So an organizational culture often encourages strategic leaders or discourages strategic leaders from pursuing or not pursuing entrepreneurial opportunities. This issue is important because entrepreneurial opportunities are a vital source of growth and innovation. Therefore, a key role of strategic leaders is to encourage and promote innovation by pursuing entrepreneurial activities. So 5 dimensions characterize a firm's entrepreneurial mindset. We have autonomy, so people need to have the autonomy to make certain decisions. And then innovativeness and risk-taking and proactiveness. They have to have some kind of a culture where people know that they can do these things. They can probably build a prototype of a particular product and bring it to the board or the management team, etc., and it is taken into consideration. And of course, they also promote competitive aggressiveness between different team members or members of staff, and that is how a lot of companies develop new products and services, by encouraging entrepreneurship within an organization. Some textbooks will call it intrapreneurship, but it's the same concept. The next key activity that strategic managers must engage in is ethical practices. And for every chapter, or for most courses that we do, we always talk about ethics in business. So to properly influence employees' judgment and behavior, ethical practices must shape the firm's decision-making process and must be an integral part of an organization's culture. So research evidence suggests that a value-based culture is the most effective means of ensuring that employees comply with the firm's ethical requirements. Strategic leaders are most likely to integrate ethical values into their decisions when the company has explicit ethics codes. The code is integrated into the business through ethics training, and shareholders expect ethical behavior. Strategic leaders can take several actions to develop an ethical organizational culture. First, they can establish and communicate specific goals to describe the firm's ethical standards. A lot of companies have their code of conduct that if it's not on their website, or they give it to you physically in printed form, and it is expected that all members of staff are to follow this code of conduct. Continuously revising and updating the code of conduct based on inputs from people throughout the firm and from stakeholders, examples, customers and suppliers. Third, disseminating the code of conduct to all stakeholders to inform them of the firm's ethical standards and practices. Fourth, we have to develop and implement methods and procedures to use in achieving the firm's ethical standards. Say, for instance, using internal audit practices that are consistent with the standards to make sure that people are complying with the ethical standards that were stated in the code of conduct. Fifth, we want creating and using explicit reward systems that recognize acts of courage, example, rewarding those who use proper channels and procedures to report observed wrongdoings. And sixth and final, we have creating a work environment in which people are treated with dignity and equality and all of that, and therefore they are more likely to conduct themselves ethically. And they don't see it as the norm where they can do whatever they want to do. The final key activity is establishing balanced organizational controls. Organizational controls are formal, information-based procedures used by managers to maintain or alter patterns in organizational activities. Controls provide the parameters for implementing strategies as well as the corrective actions to be taken when implementation-related adjustments are required. So we have financial control, focuses on short-term financial outcomes, and we have strategic controls that focuses on the content of strategic actions rather than their outcomes. The challenge of strategic leaders is to verify that their firm is emphasizing financial and strategic controls so that firm performance improves. The Balanced Scorecard now is a tool that helps strategic leaders assess the effectiveness of the controls. The Balanced Scorecard is a framework firms can use to verify that they have established both strategic and financial controls to assess their performance. And the underlying premise of the Balanced Scorecard is that firms jeopardize their future performance possibilities when financial controls are emphasized at the expense of strategic controls, in that financial controls provide feedback about outcomes achieved from past actions but do not communicate the drivers of future performance. So 4 perspectives are integrated to form the Balanced Scorecard framework. And this graphic somewhat explains it. It looks at the perspectives and the criteria under which the perspective is judged. So for financial, they're looking at your cash flow, your return on equity, return on assets. And we're looking at the customer perspective as well, assessment of ability to anticipate customer needs, the effectiveness of customer service practices, percentage of repeat business, and the quality of communications with customers. We also will have to look at the internal business processes, asset utilization improvements, improvements in employee morale, change in turnover rates. Also have to look at learning and growth, improvements in innovation ability, the number of new products compared to competitors, and increases in employee skills. So the Balanced Scorecard essentially is looking at different areas of the business that come together to form the competitive advantage that a company would have, and at the same time look at the money part of it are they making not necessarily a profit, but are they carrying in money? Are their efforts being realized, etc.? Are the customers satisfied? Are we implementing good business processes? Are our staff learning and growing so that the business can continue, etc.? So these key strategic leadership actions are really intertwined and interrelated, and they all interact with each other. So determining strategic direction, establishing balanced organizational controls, effectively managing the firm's resource portfolio, sustaining an effective organizational culture, and emphasizing ethical practices. They all interact with each other. So for example, managing the firm's resources effectively includes developing human capital and contributes to establishing strategic direction, fostering an effective culture, exploiting core competencies, using effective organizational control systems, and establishing ethical practices. So the most effective strategic leaders create viable options in making decisions regarding each of the key strategic leadership actions. And that is it for this unit on strategic leadership. I want you to now read the chapter that is posted, and complete the tutorial sheet that will be posted as well. Thanks.